on the football, Declan Rice has received a lot of criticism in the last few days. I know on my channel last night, people were going in on him saying he's on fraud watch. He's had a really poor start to the season. How have you felt about Declan Rice and Arsenal's kind of start to the season, especially now you're going into the North London derby with no Rice and no Merino? What have you made of your start to the campaign with players like Declan Rice?
Yeah, I think he's been one of the worst players, if I'm honest with you. And he's one of my favourite players. He's on the back of my shirt this year. That's how much I love Declan Rice. And I think he's been a phenomenal signing for us, right? But I will say that I think the first few games have been disappointing. I do prefer him in the 6. I'm not saying he can't play in the 8, but he's definitely a Michael Carrick, not a Steven Gerrard, in my opinion, Declan Rice. He is better in the 6. And I also think with Declan Rice, it just looks like he's not fully fit and fully ready yet. We saw that when he got the yellow. I've seen him take so many of those tackles cleanly over the last season. 12 to 18 months of Declan Rice has been a really good 12 to 18 months. And he's been at his very best. These last 3 games, he hasn't really been. I think he'll get back to it. Let's be real. But I do think he has been quite disappointing. And I don't think we've got enough in midfield. Like I said, Arsenal were 2 players short. And we should have replaced Eddie Nketiah and Emil Smith-Rowe. I'm fine with them both going. I'm fine with Nelson, Vieira, Smith-Rowe and Eddie Nketiah all leaving. But to replace them with Ethan Nwaneri and Sterling, I kind of don't think that was enough. I feel like we were Eze and a striker away from City fans going, bloody hell, they've done well. They've had a really good window. And I don't think we have. And I think that's proven now when I look at the bench at the weekend, where Trossard and Martinelli are literally the only impact subs at the moment that are coming on. Now, it was a bit different at the weekend because obviously we were trying to defend a 1-1 in the end because we just didn't want to be, losing the game. But there was nothing to bring on attacking-wise anyway other than Martinelli. There was literally nobody else. I've got Ethan Nwaneri, Salah Uddin, and Lewis Skelly. So we go into the title race against Manchester City, and we've got those 3 on the bench. Now, yes, Jesus can come back. Sterling can be added to that. And hopefully against Spurs, we'll have them all on the bench, right? But as far as I'm concerned, we are still short going into a season where we have 8 extra games. So that's my thoughts. And I think when you look at what Declan Rice has performed like in the last 3, we haven't been able to kind of drop him because we've got really nobody else other than Jorginho and Partey in a double pivot, which is incredibly slow, which is now going to be our midfield against Spurs. So, yeah, we've got cover, but is it adequate cover? We'll have to find out. Merino injury is a freak. And I don't know how long he's out for. It says 2 months, but it could even be longer than that. I don't know what we're doing in training.
Fracturing your shoulder. I will put this out there now. Fracturing the shoulder is a nasty injury. It takes a long time to hit. And it's one that where it's unlike your wrist or even your leg. It can be put in cast and you don't move it. Your shoulder is almost impossible to not move.
Not to move. Yeah.
It takes a while to heal.
Well, I spoke to Martin Keown at the weekend actually because I was doing some stuff with TNT and he said, "Oh God," he said, "I actually broke mine and I was out for 4 months, one of the worst injuries I've ever had." So, God, I hope he isn't out for that long. I mean, we actually at the moment are going to have him towards the end of October, and there's some massive fixtures coming up, and I'm talking seriously big fixtures coming up. We've actually got Spurs away, Atalanta away, Man City away, and then at the end of October, November. We've got Newcastle away, Inter Milan away, and Chelsea away. So actually, the fixtures has not been kind to us at all in terms of the Champions League. Now, last season they were really kind to us because every single Champions League game that we had, the following weekend we had at home, which is quite kind to us, right? But it has not been kind whatsoever. And just lastly on this refereeing thing on Declan Rice, I wanted to find this tweet, but I've just found it out now. So from the games after the Arsenal game, Kulusevski, Mark Guehi, Cucurella, Pedro Porro, Dallo all threw the ball away. Joe Linton, Palmer, and Bruno Gomares all also threw or kicked the ball away. And those 3, Joe Linton, Palmer, and Bruno G, were already on a yellow card, and nothing happened with any of it. So it's just a lack of consistency throughout that weekend that I think Arsenal fans have got a right to question. I don't think there's a doubt that they can question that. Whether it was the reason Arsenal lost or dropped points, I don't agree with. But I do think that you can actually look at the refereeing decisions and say it was a shambles. But yeah, I'm worried about our squad depth. I can't lie. I am.
I just checked then, Declan Rice last year played 62 games for club and country. And he looks like he played 62 games for club and country when you see him. And this is why, low key, I'm kind of like buzzing that Rodri got that bit of an injury towards the end of the season because he's not played for City now for 100 days, you know. That's kind of mad. And he's not going to play for City until the Brentford game. So when he comes back, hopefully he'll be like fresh, really had a proper solid rest and he'll be raring to go. You could see against Brighton that he was just knackered. He's probably, is he going to England? Because he could probably do with sitting that out, to be honest.
He will be. They'll be picked as well. Money.
Well, this is the thing. He could probably do with sitting that out because, you know, I watched the game, did a watch along for the Brighton game, and you could just tell that he just wasn't at it, man. Mentally, some of his decision making was put. For me, forget the sending off. I look at the first yellow card, Potsy. He's never winning that ball, and he goes sliding in. And I tell you what, he's lucky that he's not, you know, half a second early. Otherwise, he would have been a straight red. He's no need to go in for that. He was never getting the ball. He was overstretching, and he got booked for that one. That to me is a tired tackle. We've all played football, yeah, no matter the level, and you know that like towards the end of the game when you're stretching and you know what I mean. That's exactly what he was doing. He was doing that in the first half. So for me. It would have been decent for Arsenal, decent for Rice if he could have sat this international break out, but obviously not. And you're going to have to see, I guess maybe if you can get the win against Spurs, then obviously he's going to have a week off there. That's a little bit of a rest. He can come back for the City game and hopefully he'll be a lot fresher and ready to go. But listen, I think
he'll have to play against Atlanta because Thomas Partey won't be able to play all three of them games. And Jorginho's 33 now.
Yeah, but you know what, Potsy? If I was Arteta, I'd have that game off. I'd throw it.
Yeah.
I seriously would throw it. There are 8 games, you have to qualify. You don't need to finish first in the group. You just need to get in the top 8. And then even if you finish between the 8th and the 24th, it's still not the end of the day.
You're going to play a crappier team. I look at the top teams in Europe, and although there's going to be some really good games and there's jeopardy within it, all the top teams, and I'm talking about the top 2 or 3 teams from the top 4 leagues, if they don't get through this league, I mean, they're saying it's a league campaign. It's basically a group stage, a big fucking group. If you don't get out of it, even via the playoffs, your manager needs sacking. Genuinely, you need sacking. You need sacking if you're not getting through it.
Would you not throw it, Terry? Would you not throw it? Right? He's got Spurs without Rice. He's then got an away fit. That's away. He's then got to go to Italy and play against. By the way, Atalanta pressure mad. So that's going to be mad intense. And then he's got City. If you lose that City game, that's not looking good for your league title already. If I was Arteta, I'd throw the Atalanta game and I'd back myself to qualify out the remaining 7 games. And even if I don't, I'll still get in the playoff.
Rotation is, you know, whether you use the phrase throwing it or rotating, I don't think it matters. He's got to do it. And again, if I speak about Man United in our pomp, the amount of times I've been like, I'm looking forward to tonight. We're at home against, and sometimes I look at the goal scoring record of say Wayne Rooney in the Champions League, and it's good. I think that's one of the highest Englishmen of all time. But the amount of times we'd have a Champions League game and we're at home against some minnow and Rooney and the other stars all on the bench. And I'd be sitting there going, this was an opportunity for him to bag 4 or 5 goals. That's because the Premier League was so competitive and so intense. Other leagues have this advantage over us. How many times have you seen PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich almost change an entire starting 11 on a Saturday before a Champions League game on a Tuesday? Happens every single year. None of us can afford to do that in the Premier League when your team's fighting for a title because our league is different in that way. And and it's just the truth. We all know it happens. We've all seen it happen. It will happen again this year. So he has to learn and has to rotate. And it might mean you'll lose a few games along the way in that Champions League campaign. But as long as you're in the knockout phase, it doesn't really matter. Exactly. And especially as it's new, especially now as it's a new format. No one really knows the formula. Does that make sense? There's almost this element of we knew before, get to 10 points, win your group, then you get the easier draw in the next round. We don't know the best methodology. You could find the team that wins it is the team that maybe loses 3 of its games in the group stages by rotating, resting, staying fresh. Back end of the season, got more legs. Some teams might this season go into it and go, going to try and win every game, finish near the top, get an easier draw. But by the time you get to February, March, you might be fucked physically. So none of us know the exact right approach for this tournament because it's completely new, you know? So yeah, look, I think Arsenal have definitely got to do something in that space because I would agree. Declan Rice hasn't had a great start to the season. Where I'll defend Declan Rice though is from the likes of David, big up yourself, Chelsea fan, Don, the Chelsea fan who was on last night, and others who I always told you weren't very good. Oh, what you're saying that now, his first real downturn in like 5 seasons is not proof that he isn't the player that everybody's made him out to be. All players go through these peaks and troughs. There's only 2 in their careers up until their old age as footballers didn't really have peaks and troughs, and that was Ronaldo and Messi. Every other single player, whether it was Henry, whether it was Gianfranco Zola, whether it was Wayne Rooney, whether it was Aguero, they all had ups and downs. That no one is that consistent all the time. There's always going to be that. But this is where it's about the manager getting it right. Do you play him through the bad period? Do you rest him? The Moreno injury is obviously a problem for that because it means that. Plus, you have got youngsters, as you mentioned, like the likes of Waneri. Because give him a go. In certain games, give him a go. Give him an opportunity. Like, we know how talented he is as football fans. Have all seen him play. So, yeah, look, I think he needs a bit of help. Declan Rice, he's not in great form. But it's about the manager. You don't want to do what Ten Hag's doing with Rashford. Rashford should not be playing. Whether you like him or dislike him is irrelevant. Shouldn't be playing. But he's getting picked and he's stinking it out. And every time he stinks it out, it gets worse. And the manager's got to get this right for Arsenal. But look, it's going to be a very, very interesting time after the international break to see what Arsenal do, especially with the new Champions League format starting as well. Let's go to some of these super chats here. There's quite a few of them. First one.